Hello and welcome to Auburn Heights, the mansion of the Marshall family here at Auburn Valley State Park. My name is Teresa Pierce and I'm the Interpretive Programs Coordinator here. Joining me today is Jackie Cook, the Volunteer Manager here and also at Brandywine Creek State Park. Normally we would love to welcome you for a tour here at Auburn Heights, but today we want to give you a little sneak peek inside and a virtual tour of the first floor here at Auburn Heights. Jackie and I will each take a few rooms to show you a little bit about the place and tell you how you can be a docent here at the mansion and to give tours of it yourself. Auburn Heights was built in 1897 by Israel and Lizzie Marshall, who were the first of 3 generations of Marshalls to live here and to leave their mark on the place. Because Israel Marshall was a mill owner and very much interested in industry, the house is full of examples of Edwardian-era innovation. Many of the features in the home were his personal choices that tell you a lot about the man. For instance, the mantelpiece beside me, which looks very fancy and you can see the griffins that are carved into it, was made by a machine, which is hard for us to imagine in 1900 at the turn of the century that they already had such complicated machines working. But it was an example of the time. In fact, if you were a visitor here at Auburn Heights, you would have been amazed when you stepped through the front door, not because of the scale of the room or how fancy things were, but in fact, it's because you would have been greeted with electricity and the sounds of steam heat banging through the walls and the radiators. That's because at that time, a home this far out of the city would not have had those modern conveniences and amenities. Israel Marshall designed the home specifically to have those modern features piped up from his mill at the bottom of the hill. This made this really a modern, scientifically advanced home for its time. We're going to look at a few things around here in the front hall that are owned by the Marshalls, and it tells you a little bit about them. For instance, a beautiful grandfather clock was purchased by Israel Marshall in 1900 in Wilmington, Delaware. This was sort of a showcase piece to show off his beautiful home, and you can see his name carved into the pendulum even today. But it wasn't just Israel Marshall that was interested in innovation and change. His son Clarence Marshall, the second homeowner of Auburn Heights, left his own mark. For instance, here in the front hall, there's an interesting looking bit of wall art that a lot of people walk by and don't even look at. That actually is connected to a wind vane up on the roof of the building. Clarence wired it up so that light bulbs would flash and light up, letting him know in the morning which direction the wind was blowing. Of course, this is before smartphones and the internet, but this is going to help him when he goes out to do his trap shooting outside. Pretty cool, modern innovation done by another homeowner here at Auburn Heights. Other things around you could tell they're fascinated with technology. We have a Victrola, an Electrola, and a Regina music box. Pretty rare and interesting musical devices here in the home.
Hi, welcome to the Marshall Dining Room. This room was an original feature of the home, and it was used for all of the formal dining that took place, entertaining friends and family. And there were 2 main entrances for people to access the dining room. One was through the main hall, down this little side hallway out of the front hall where all of your guests would come through, business associates. There's another entrance that goes into the family parlor, and that room would have been where your close guests, close friends, and family would have come through in true Victorian etiquette. This room would have been set up. There is a place setting here, but this entire table could have been elongated and set up for multiple people, and we do have the place settings for some of the wedding feasts that took place here. We have a nice framed lithograph of Abraham Lincoln on the wall as well. That was a wedding gift to in the Marshall family, within the Marshall family, as well as a silver tea service that we keep in this room. Along the back wall, we have one large door, and all of the door wood and the glass panels are all original to the home, and that was originally an external door. From this room, you can see the paper mill down the hill and across the street. Lizzie and Israel Marshall, the original builders and homeowners here, had frequent lunches during the workday in this dining room. Lizzie would be in the kitchen in the back, working on the food for anyone who was coming up, and somebody would usually run up the hill from the mill, or she could see them coming from the window there. They'd come right through that door and into this room. We don't know how she did it, but nobody ever left this room hungry. So she always fed all the workers that would come up for lunch from the mill. In addition to this area, we had just next door a little ice box. So along the side wall, there were originally 2 high windows that were placed in that went back and forth between those two rooms. This back entrance would have been explicitly for the servers that would have come through here.
So the space that we're standing in right now was very important when it came to mealtime. We already heard that Lizzie Marshall was extremely generous when it came to feeding the mill workers that came up to the house for dinner or lunch. But beyond me to the right is where the original kitchen was. This space here, though, was just as important as the kitchen itself. To the left, Israel and Lizzie, shortly after moving in, added an icebox. Before the time of refrigerators, or as they were called in a few years, Frigidaires all the time, the icebox is where the meats, cheeses, and things that were perishable were kept. To my right is something that you will never see really in a modern home, but was very much used here at Auburn Heights, and this is the dumbwaiter. This shelving unit to my right has been secured in place, but in its heyday, it would have been loaded up with food or things or laundry. You could use any number of things to be sent up to the second and third floors here on the dumbwaiter. This would have been pretty much the purview almost entirely of the staff here at Auburn Heights, and this is really their space. And to the right is the butler's pantry, where all the silverware and china and things were kept to prepare the dining room for Auburn Heights' many guests.
We are now in the parlor, which is our last stop on the tour. And this room is currently the largest room in the house, but originally it was not. It was split into two rooms, and that's why there are several entrances. Originally, in Victorian etiquette, the front parlor would have been for your formal guests, people you didn't know very well, or folks that you had over for business. Your back parlor would have been for your close friends and family. Most folks never saw the back parlor. But in 1921, Esther and Clarence Marshall were married, and this room became less about Victorian etiquette and more about fun. So they had the central partition wall removed and the fireplace repointed, so there's just one fireplace instead of the original two. The alcove in the front turret here was often cleared out and used for musical guests. They would come, the little band would come and play, and this would be a dance hall. There was a grand piano that was kept in the main hall as well. So this was more of a fun area after about 1922 when the room was redone. The front turret area is also set up as a game room because that was another use for that small space. Finally, in 1922, about the same time that this room was redone, the sun porch was added onto the side of the residence. The door that was originally an external door in the dining room really kind of didn't get used anymore, and a gigantic steam radiator was put in that sun porch. Originally a bay window, we got a double door that leads right out into that area, and it was used often for Esther, especially for a sewing area where they made bandages to support the World War II war efforts. The last kind of tie-in in the parlor is for the third generation, Tom and Ruth Marshall, who donated this property to the state. On the back wall, we have a picture of Tom and Ruth, as well as, in true Quaker tradition, their framed wedding certificate that was signed by all guests in attendance. So this room really helps to tie in all three generations of Marshalls that lived here. Thanks so much for your time today. We really hope you enjoyed your tour of the Marshall Mansion in Auburn Heights at Auburn Valley State Park. We look forward to seeing you here soon.